Hey guys, welcome to day 16 of Veganuary. For today's video, I'm going to be talking about why I don't eat seafood. So it's just really interesting because I feel like the theme of water is coming up a lot for me right now. Like I actually had a dream last night that like some underwater animal, like a manatee or something, was like swimming me around the water, and it just started raining right now, so it's just really interesting. And I created a little under the sea look for you guys today, so I kind of like did my hair in a little under the sea style, and I got my pineapple clothing sports bra on, which I do have a coupon code if you guys are interested in pineapple clothing to get some awesome, eco-friendly, locally made athletic wear. So you can always grab the coupon code for that in my video descriptions. But I did want to start by saying, if you guys eat seafood, this is by no means a judgment, because I ate seafood for a really, really long time. I really liked seafood. So like I was vegetarian on and off for like 10 years. And during that time, I was actually like a lot of the time really pescatarian. I just didn't really have that label. But I definitely like ate seafood once in a while and I liked it. And I didn't really have a problem with eating seafood. So definitely if you eat it, like by no means am I judging you. But I do want to talk about why I don't eat seafood any longer. So when I first decided I was going to be vegan, I definitely was like thinking about any foods that I would miss or substitutions or how I was going to eat things that I used to eat. And luckily there's just so many foods on the market right now that make it really easy to substitute. Like if you do have cravings for seafood, there's just so many vegan alternatives that are available now. So there's nori. So like for me, I used to love having sushi, and I find now that it's just like I can satisfy my cravings, I can satisfy my taste buds by having nori just wrapped around like other fruits and veggies, you know? Like I didn't really need the seafood. And because of like the taste, like you can get that, you can mimic that taste by using other like sea veggies. So it was just like by substituting, I was able to satisfy any cravings really easily, and I didn't have to harm any animals. So as you guys know, I'm an ethical vegan, and I just really didn't want to bring pain or suffering to any living beings, any animals, and I was able to like get my nutrients. So there's no nutrients that you need to obtain from animal sources that you can't get from plant-based sources. And we can talk about B12 in another video, so definitely let me know in the comments section if you want me to make a video about B12, because I feel like that is one that people would say like, oh, but you need to get that from an animal source. So I could talk about that if you want me to. But for especially like with seafood, for example, it's like we can cut out the middleman. So you can, like a lot of people would say like, oh, fish or seafood has certain nutrients. But the thing is that those sea animals have those nutrients because they're eating like the plant-based sources of those nutrients. So like we can cut out the middleman and just go straight to the plant-based sources that are under the water. So we don't actually need to like kill a fish or get through the fish to get that nutrient. We could just go straight to the nutrient. So there's tons of sea veggies. So like there's dulse, there's kelp, there's nori. So those are the sea veggies. And then when it comes to, like, I know some people have fish oil. There are definitely vegan fish oils that are available. And by having the plant-based sources, you don't have to worry about like mercury poisoning, for example, and other contaminants and things like antibiotics, that if there's fish that are from like a fish farm and they're given antibiotics or other drugs and chemicals, then you won't be having those drugs and chemicals if you're just going straight to the plant-based sources and not having the fish. And I wanted to talk about some other vegan alternatives that are available. So there are tons, like if you're having processed foods or transition foods, there are tons of like fish fillets and different processed foods from from places like Gardein. I don't know if that's how you pronounce the brand, but there are definitely, like in the frozen section of your grocery store and places like Whole Foods, there's definitely a ton of those. You can also make your own recipes at home. So again, like you can use things like dulse, kelp, nori, like this. There's tons and tons of different sea veggies. So you can use those to flavor your foods so that you can give it that like familiar fishy taste. And I've had things like almond tuna, so like you can have, and that's for the base, but again, it will have those sea veggies in it. There's also like chickpea tunas, same thing, like you're gonna have a lot of those like fishy tasting things that just have a different base, like they're just creating the texture, like the chickpeas or the tuna or different tofus. So those are going to give you the texture, and then the flavor is going to typically come from sea veggies. Other things that can give the texture or even the visual, like it looks like seafood, can be things like lobster mushrooms and oyster mushrooms. So they look eerily like the familiar like oysters and lobster tails, which is like so crazy. And I'm not sure exactly like with the flavor, but again, I would say that they probably, especially at a restaurant or for recipes, they probably just suggest adding those sea veggies to give it that flavor. And also there's things like, you know, like using lemon, because oftentimes when we have those sea foods, seafoods, right? The traditional seafoods, they do have lemon on them. So by using lemon, there's a lot of ways. So when we're thinking about creating the vegan versions of things, you typically want to think about three things. So that's the look of it. So does it look like the familiar non-vegan foods that you know of? Does it have the taste? And then the texture. So when you're creating these vegan foods, you want to think about those three elements. So as long as those three elements are in place, oftentimes people feel that they are totally satisfied. So it comes to really like two things when it comes to like making the transition away from the non-vegan foods, and it's really like making sure you get your nutrients and you know about nutrition. So definitely you want to do your research on that, like make sure that you are getting the nutrients that you need to get from the sources like you may have been getting from before. And then the second thing is satisfying those cravings, because if you really do enjoy those non-vegan foods, then it's really about like having those substitutions so that you can still enjoy the foods, but there doesn't have to be any pain or suffering or health issues that come along with those foods. So you can still enjoy the same foods, they're just going to be vegan, right? And oftentimes, especially with the processed foods, they're going to taste the same, you know, like people would be like, oh, I couldn't even tell the difference. So those are really like the reasons why I don't consume seafood, because it was so easy for me to make these substitutions and for me to get the nutrition that I needed from the plant-based sources. So for me, it was like, it was a really simple transition away from seafoods. But I do want to say, of course, like if it's not a simple transition for you, that's totally fine too. But there are alternatives, there are methods out there to start making those substitutions so that eventually you can transition to being fully vegan if you want to. So I hope this video has been helpful. I'd love to know your comments and questions in the comment section down below. And I will see you guys in the next video. Love you guys. See you soon. Bye.